Right off the bat, this phone looks exactly like the Note 5, but when you look a little closer, you'll notice the lack of the S Pen and even the lack of the curved edges on the back. So then you begin to think, wow, this thing is pretty much a big Galaxy S6. No, actually this thing looks like a huge Galaxy S6. Now when I say huge, I'm not kidding. This is a much bigger phone than even the Note 5 due to this gigantic 6-inch screen. So yeah, this phone can be quite cumbersome to hold, but thanks to its slim top and bottom bezels, it's not too much taller than other phones that have smaller screens. The main thing here is this extra width that brings the phone to 80.9 millimeters, which can really make the phone hard to use one-handed. Just like the standard Galaxy S6, we have a very premium design that features Gorilla Glass 4. We have the gold version right here, which also keeps the front black, which is nice. You can also pick up the A9 in other unique colors like silver and pink. On the back, and with its extra thickness at 7.4 millimeters, which is 0.2 millimeters thinner than the Note 5, we have a camera sensor that protrudes a little less. Probably one of the most noticeable differences between the Galaxy A9 and its more popular S6 and Note 5 companions is its weight. This phone is heavy at 200 grams. It's the first thing that stuck out to me as I picked up the phone for the first time. But this really isn't a huge issue, although with its large dimensions, it can feel a little unbalanced when maneuvering it around in your hand. Now there is a reason for this extra weight, and that's due to the A9's gigantic 4,000 mAh battery. And with the way this battery performs, as we'll find out later on, it definitely makes up for this huge and heavy design. Samsung has always been known for beautiful displays on their smartphones, and in most areas, the Galaxy A9 is no exception. Like I said, the A9 offers a very large 6-inch display, which makes this phone the ultimate media consumer. Watching videos is a joy thanks to all this extra room, and browsing the web makes for a very pleasant experience. Samsung, of course, still stuck to their Super AMOLED technology here, along with their punched up colors to create very vibrant images. However, as we look at the display specs here, you'll notice one area where the A9 falls a bit short, and that's its resolution. A 1080 by 1920 Full HD resolution still makes for a great resolution on most smartphones today, but with a 6-inch display like the one here on the A9, it makes for a rather low pixel density at 367 ppi. So text will appear fuzzy even when holding the phone at a normal using distance, and you'll definitely notice images are not too sharp. But all this being said, I can confidently say this display is gorgeous, as I really do love great AMOLED displays and saturated colors. Sure, the resolution doesn't make for the clearest viewing experience, but with less pixels to push, well, this is why I'm so excited to get to the battery section. Like most of Samsung's lineups these days, we have the beloved fingerprint scanner, which is located on the physical home button, which is located between the capacitive buttons. It's a decent place for it because you can access it at any time, although it can be a little awkward compared to a rear-facing sensor. You still have to push the home button for the fingerprint scanner to begin reading, but it's still super fast and very accurate, only failing to read my print maybe once in every 20 attempts. And yes, in addition to this fingerprint scanner, we have Samsung Pay, which will work perfectly with the A9. The speaker is still located on the bottom right, which is a pretty bad place for it, given the sound is directed away from you and can easily be covered up when holding the phone in landscape for videos or games. The quality is decent, just as good as the standard S6. It gets loud and is pretty clear with a small amount of compression to it. Finally, a very welcomed addition is a microSD card slot allowing up to 128 gigs of storage. You can access the slot here, which pulls out a rather large tray thanks to the phone's dual SIM card capabilities. This SD card slot had been missing on the Galaxy S6 and Note 5, which caused a great amount of controversy in the tech world. So it's very promising to see Samsung include this while still maintaining a premium design. And perhaps this is a little foreshadowing for the future as well. As we run through the specs, you'll notice a very different look, as here we have Snapdragon processors and Adreno GPUs instead of Exynos processors and Mali GPUs. We have the newly renamed octa-core Qualcomm Snapdragon 652 processor with an Adreno 510 and 3 gigs of RAM, and actually this setup really gets close to the performance similar to the Note 5 and crushes the standard S6's performance. I ran the Galaxy A9 through Geekbench and Antutu several times to get a good understanding of how it holds up against the competition, and it received very similar rankings to the Note 5. The A9 handles gaming with ease with barely any drop frames. It's very smooth. The recent app screen runs very well, although refreshes apps a little more than usual. But you can jump in and out of apps very fast without any hesitation. Really, the only thing that lags up the phone is this briefing screen that you can access on the left of the home screen. This isn't new though, and the same can be said for other Samsung phones. It's a very smooth experience overall. Anyway, we've made it to the battery section, and if you're thinking the A9 spec sheet hints towards great battery life, you would be more than correct. First off, the battery on the Galaxy A9 is a 4,000 mAh battery, which is one of the largest on the market right now. Also, with the A9 only sporting a full HD resolution instead of Quad HD, which has kind of become the standard for flagships, it has a lot less pixels to push, which means less power. All of this translates to phenomenal battery life. The Galaxy A9 could easily last me 2 full days with very decent standby time. You won't be able to kill this thing in a day, especially if you're not a heavy gamer. I could easily manage up to 8 hours of screen on time, which is pretty remarkable, especially for someone like me who is constantly taking pictures. If you take advantage of Samsung's battery saving options when you begin to get low, this number will drastically increase by up to another hour. There was really never a need for me to charge the A9 overnight, and if the phone did begin to get low on battery towards the end of the second day, I could easily charge it up enough to last me the rest of the day, and fast too with its Quick Charge 3.0 capabilities. The camera has been downgraded from the standard Galaxy S6, but still is able to take good pictures. We have a smaller sensor size of 13 megapixels, however an aperture of 1.9 is still present, and fortunately, optical image stabilization is here as well. To take advantage of the full 13 megapixels, you'll have to resort to shooting in a 4:3 aspect ratio, and with enough light, the camera performs very well. There's some post-processing sharpening going on that really helps create sharp-looking pictures, and colors look very vibrant. But it can struggle with dynamic range, and lots of detail can get lost within the shadows. Overexposure is very common for this camera, especially on these overcast days, but HDR does a great job at fixing this and remaining realistic looking. Indoor shots that have less light will start to create very dull images with not much color and lots of noise and artifacts. The front-facing camera actually sports a larger megapixel count than its standard counterpart at 8 megapixels instead of 5. The difference in detail is actually noticeable. While the S6's selfie cam lacked lots of detail, the A9 produces a great amount of detail, with everything being very sharp, which is nice. The lens is wide-angled as well, like we're used to, which we love, as it helps get a lot of information in the shot. So it's a little bit of an unusual case, with the rear-facing camera being downgraded, while the front-facing camera seems to be the same or slightly better. Either way, the A9's camera quality is very good, but the Galaxy S6 still has a beat. Probably the biggest shock when it comes to the A9 is that although with this phone being released in January of this year, it was not released with Android Marshmallow, but instead Android 5.1.1 Lollipop. Perhaps Samsung is still testing their Marshmallow version of TouchWiz, or maybe wants to save it for the Galaxy S7 announcement. But for now, we have the version of TouchWiz that we've been familiar with for about a year now. A pretty simple skin of Android with a couple of cool features thrown in. The notification pull down is nicely designed if you don't mind the color choice. Settings allows for quick settings to be assigned to easy access. There is dual window support, which is great and runs very well, although you'll be limited to certain apps. Sure, there are some areas that may need work, like the small stutters that have to do with the home screen animations, but hopefully those can be fixed when Samsung releases their Marshmallow version for the A9. With the Galaxy A9 sharing 99% of its design DNA with the Galaxy S6, it'll definitely raise the question, should I go with the A9 or S6? Size is going to be the biggest difference between the two. The Galaxy A9 is one of the largest phones on the market right now with its huge 6-inch screen. And although it's an awesome size for viewing videos, the low resolution may steer some users away. However, if you can get past this lower pixel density, you'll really love the amount of power it saves to produce amazing battery life. Obviously, that's something you couldn't say about the S6. The camera definitely is a noticeable downgrade, but if you're not comparing side by side, the A9's photos will do just fine. For a $600 phone with great overall performance, battery life, and finally access to a microSD card slot, the Galaxy A9 looks like it could begin to put Samsung back on top when it comes to creating phones for the power user.